Okay, everyone, welcome back. It's the first episode of the new year. It is currently January 4th, 3:22 p.m. at the time of recording.
22.
We hope you guys had an amazing new year. Um, there has been a lot of news that has happened, especially in Las Vegas and New Orleans. As I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of bad things, but nonetheless, it needs to be covered, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah, so before that, we did get a new microphone, a new camera, and then we used two other webcams, a new recording software. So we're using OBS now and like a new setup. So hopefully, this is set up way better because I can like manage this entire setup. I can move between all these things, so it works way better. So hopefully we can keep improving, but just that's definitely a major side note.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, we have the Las Vegas Cybertruck Explosion, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. I believe it was outside of Trump Tower.
Yeah. That's how
So apparently this guy was from Colorado Springs. He rented a Cybertruck. And interestingly, he used the same software to rent it, and he basically rented it. He drove it to Las Vegas, filled it with all this explosives, and exploded it. Apparently, his doctor said he had symptoms of a traumatic brain injury. He was in the military. He did several tours. But he didn't have a formal diagnosis from the Army. His wife said that he was scared he would be somehow like punished or demoted or something like that if he came out about his mental troubles. Over the years, however, his doctor said his symptoms seemed to grow worse. Apparently, repeated blows to the head and blast exposure may cause damage that can accumulate almost unnoticed over time.
Yeah, so this guy, we were actually trending on Twitter the other day, Colorado Springs. We had like 43,000 posts. But these guys were, I think they were both the other guy in the New Orleans attack, which we'll talk about in a second, he was from Texas. But this guy was, I think he was from Colorado Springs too. And there was a ton of conspiracy theories. I mean, this is like I do spend a lot of time like online. So this is probably more of an online phenomenon and less really significant to a broader range of the GOP. But there was so much peddling of conspiracy theories on Twitter about this. I mean, did you really see that? People were just going absolutely insane talking about, oh my gosh, this guy, there's a connection between these guys, both from Colorado Springs. They both went to the same military academy, I'm pretty sure, right? So I'm pretty sure like one of the biggest people talking about this was the End Wokeness account, just peddling all this stuff. I mean, originally it was, I'm pretty sure the guy in this attack was white, but the other guy in the New Orleans attack was Muslim, I'm pretty sure, an Arab. And so the people were originally talking about like, oh, there's terrorists coming across our borders and everybody's coming in and this is the Biden crime, this is what happens when you open your borders. And then it turns out the guy's actually literally born and raised in Texas, and he also just had like a serious mental break like the guy in the Las Vegas attack. And so it's just like a huge thing. Like this is of course, I mean, like I talked about last time, one of the biggest villains in the modern Republican framework, and how they managed to win the election is not like it's immigrants, and the justification given for why your life is so bad and why you're struggling isn't what the Republican standard usually is, which is just saying like, oh, it's your fault and you haven't tried, and it's not the economic standards, it's just your laziness and you watching TV all the time. It's immigrants, which is one of the reasons why they've been able to present themselves in such a charismatic way and been able to win this and have been able to win the last election. And so it's just such a prime example of how they will jump on these types of stories so quickly to talk about, like, it's of course it's the fault of Biden or the fault of immigration. And so I think I mean that's really one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this was it was really shocking to see all of the conspiracy theories and all the anti-immigrant rhetoric, particularly online, and then it just turns out to be.
While the right blew this whole thing up, they blew up what they want to. So does the left. Because what?
I would say it's more of a phenomenon on the right, though. I mean, there was no backing behind this whole immigrant story at all, dude. This guy was literally born in Texas, and your end wokenesses and your not to like say that libs at TikTok just did this, and I didn't really see anything that they said. I wouldn't see it out of their character. I wouldn't see it. It was unlikely that they did peddle that, but I didn't see any posts about that. So not saying that they did, but they would say stuff like that, and like those types of people just jumped on this, and there was no backing behind it at all. I mean, if you're the left, like, are you saying that they didn't cover it because of the transgender thing?
Well, no, it did get coverage. I mean, that might not be an example, but a better example would be what?
Because they did cover.
Yeah, but
so
they
it's not really...
didn't really investigate the motive as much. But like, I think a month ago there was, and no one ever heard about this. It was not covered by like any national news. There was a guy in California that went into an elementary school and he shot 2 kindergartners. And he had pro-Hamas ties. His whole he left behind memoirs that were like pro-Hamas.
Does that mean pro-Palestinian or pro? Was he actually pro-Hamas?
Yeah, he was. All of his things were
okay.
Pro. Well, yeah, he was Hamas affiliated, or actually no, he wasn't affiliated directly with Hamas, but it just didn't get any coverage, right? But if a pro-Israeli walked into a mosque and shot people, it would be all over the news. It would be wild.
I mean, the entire establishment, right and left, is basically bribed by Israel too. Most of the House, Republican and Democrat, is bribed by AIPAC. Granted, there are less Democrats that are bribed by AIPAC than those that are bribed by Republicans. But when you're talking about Israel, like, Israel is one of those issues where generally the left represents the perspective that Palestinians deserve human rights, and like pro-Palestinians are generally associated with the left, although like the New York Times has promoted no shortage of fake articles about like this anti-Hamas stuff, like, not to say that Hamas is good, but like this stuff like against Hamas and these leaked documents that turn out to be completely fake. So if you say it like that, like, most of the left is aligned with Israel too on that issue. Like,
then why didn't they cover that? If they
I
had
mean,
any
California
interest?
is just kind of like a. I didn't really hear about this story, so I don't know a lot about it. But I would probably think that, like, are most mass shootings covered in the U.S.? No, don't we have a mass shooting like every 2 days
but my
or something
point is
in the
that
U.S.? Like,
if
it's a big problem.
But if a pro-Israeli again walked into a mosque, God forbid, and shot people, it would 1,000,000% be covered. It would.
Don't you remember that story like this summer about the anti? It was this. I don't really. I have to think about it for a second. When there was that synagogue thing and these people, there was this protest against it and everybody was so mad, and the media portrayed it as everybody's just mad that these people are meeting at a synagogue because they're anti-Semitic and they don't support Jewish people. When it turned out that it was literally selling stolen property in the West Bank and only Jews could buy it. The left, all of the left, and all of the right basically covered that. And it was extremely hard to find the actual truth about that because they just portrayed it as this random synagogue meeting that got protested for no reason. Everybody on the right and the left was talking about it that way. And it was only at the bottom of these articles they're like, oh yeah, by the way, it was an illegal sale of stolen land. It's against international law. Like, don't you remember that?
I don't, but so...
That was insane.
Yeah, but even with this, it's like... That was like a few people, and then some people on the internet that were saying it was an immigrant. These weren't like... I don't think it was the majority of Republicans were saying this guy was an immigrant.
It was more of an online thing.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
Trump made a comment, of course, that it was an immigrant, but it quickly turned out to be false. So I don't think they were intentionally... Like, the majority of Republicans were trying to do this, yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty telling how there was, like, no basis behind so much of this, and still people jumped on it so in such a crazy way. So do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, I guess my last thing would just be, again, how I said earlier. I guess what I'm trying to say is both sides are doing this. It's not just, like, totally the right or totally the left. Okay, so now we have
New Orleans attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, what happened again on New Year's Eve? Most of you have heard about this, but a rental pickup truck rammed into a crowded New Year's Eve parade. He killed 14 people, hopped out of his car, engaged police in gunfire. I think he may have injured 2 police officers, but they're totally fine. And then he was shot by police and succumbed to his injuries. So apparently he was a part of ISIS. He joined ISIS. He took the oath, and he carried an ISIS flag with him in the truck that he used. Apparently, so he moved to a Muslim neighborhood, and he was even in his Muslim neighborhood. He was Muslim, by the way. Yeah, he was still an outcast, despite being Muslim himself. The crazy thing is that no one really saw his descent into madness. They didn't really see, it was just so unexpected for his family and all that. He didn't really have a massive history of things like this, but he did have financial and marital troubles before this happened. He having his 3rd divorce in 2022. So my last thing on this, I guess, is just there were concerns about security at this. There was apparently like a metal barrier or something that was supposed to be fixed or something.
It was a police car, I'm pretty sure. Right?
Yeah, but the guy just drove over the sidewalk anyway, so apparently it wouldn't really have mattered. So both trucks used in these attacks used the same rental car app. Turo.
So I'm pretty sure a lot of the story about this was, of course, the actual events of it, but a lot of it, too, was like how Biden reacted to it and how the FBI reacted to it. So now that we have our new recording studio, we can actually show this on the screen. So here, I'll show Biden's statement regarding this event here.
I know I can speak for all Americans when I say our hearts are with the people of New Orleans after the despicable attack that occurred in the early morning hours. To all the families of those who were killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal in the weeks to come.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there he does talk about like how there was talk about how this might have been an immigrant and how it actually didn't end up being a person that was, a person that was an immigrant doing this. And we just talked about this, but of course, but much of, like I was saying, much of the story about this has been the sort of FBI failure around this, because I think that people were talking about on Twitter, like the FBI had this guy on like a watch list or something, or they were keeping an eye out for him, or they saw that this guy was affiliated with ISIS. So was he actually a member of ISIS, or was he just radicalized by ISIS? Because I'm not really sure on that here. Yeah. Because if this guy was a member of ISIS here, yeah, let's see. Feels like ISIS influence. So, if this guy, there is a huge story there. And I mean, of course, the people are talking about, like, the mayor said that it was a terrorist attack. Then the FBI said it was a mass killing or something. Like, some classification that was not as bad as a terrorist attack, but then I think that people are talking about that kind of got like community noted. Maybe I spend too much time on Twitter, but then they kind of talking about how the FBI did identify it as a terrorist attack.
So the FBI said that the New Orleans State attack suspect was a member of the Islamic State terrorist.
Yeah, so that's like a huge story. I mean, ISIS has been getting a lot of coverage recently, especially too with all the stuff going down in Iraq and its affiliations with Israel, and so it's just like it's such a huge story in so many ways. I mean, the FBI failures, of course, and everybody remembers back in July when Donald Trump got shot, the failures of the Secret Service. And so, like, what would you say?
I mean, yeah, I guess, let's see. I mean, there's not, I guess, too much to say about it. It was just, yeah, really sad.
Yeah, like a horrible thing, obviously.
Yeah, of
15
course.
people dying.
Yeah, so I wonder, like, how would you go about, if you're the FBI, you have an interesting task after the Cybertruck and this, like, how do you basically make the public feel safe, make them feel like it's not going to happen
again? That's a really good question.
Yeah, because, like...
Probably prevent this stuff from happening.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, do you go into, like, monitoring people? Like, how does this work?
I mean, there was that guy who was threatening to kill Biden. I think that was, like, more than a year ago. Yeah. That was a really long time ago. But there's this person threatening to kill Biden, and he had these guns, and the FBI showed up to his house and killed him. So, I mean, yeah, if you're posting on Twitter this stuff about, obviously saying that you support ISIS is free speech, but if you are a member of ISIS, that's pretty problematic, in my opinion, and you should... Probably something should happen about that, but yeah, that's really all that I have to say about that.
Yeah, especially if you're a member of the military. Yeah, that's crazy.
So...
Okay, so now we have the South Korean arrest warrant. So basically, there was about 100 criminal investigators and police in South Korea that tried to essentially execute a court-issued arrest warrant. So they know where this guy is. They're pretty sure he's at a house. So basically, if you want to show the whole
I'll put this up on the screen now.
Okay. So they made it through 2 blockades formed by parked vehicles and people. And then when they came within 650 feet of the building where the president was believed to be hiding, they encountered 10 buses and cars, along with 200 elite soldiers and bodyguards belonging to Mr. Yoon's presidential security service. So that diagram does a really good job showing it. So small scuffles erupted. They basically tried to detain the president, and the elite soldiers weren't having it. So then after 5.5 hours, they retreated. Public surveys show that a majority of South Koreans wanted the president ousted and punished for insurrection. Unsurprisingly. Okay, I'm going to just totally butcher this name, but according to An Byojin, a professor of political science at Kyunghee University in Seoul, it basically exposes in South Korea, or it exposes weaknesses in South Korea as a democracy. You wanna?
Yeah, so of course, like, to credit, that graphic was from the New York Times. But I think that there's a lot to learn there about when you do try to cause serious damage to your democracy, how South Korea is, like, actually punishing this guy. So he declared martial law for 6 hours. The entire country erupted against him. He has approval ratings in the single digits after this happens. One impeachment vote happens. He barely escapes it. Another happens, and he is not able to escape it this time, and then is basically forced out of politics. He will, of course, never be a politician again. He will never be in a position of power again. He is punished in every single way. And I mean, like, if you think about, like, going back to the 2020 election, I remember the 2020 election so vividly because I remember watching as Trump was doing good and in the polls in the first few hours, then going down. And I remember going to bed not knowing what was going to happen. And I mean, I was like, I think 11 or 12 years old. And then my mom turned on Seth Meyers and I watched Donald Trump talk about this, saying this is a fraud to the American people and all this crazy rhetoric. And that was really the point when I sort of realized the reality of much of the Republican Party, but mainly Donald Trump. And it was really a surreal experience living through this and going to online school. Of course, it was during COVID, going to online school the next day and watching the election and watching Donald Trump have a meltdown on Twitter. And then it eventually ends up culminating with January 6th, one of the most heinous attacks on our democracy in the history of the nation. And would you disagree with that? That's a heinous attack on democracy?
First of all, the report that came out, there's like 30-something FBI agents, informants in the crowd. And second of all, there's videos that have come out that the police were appearing, they obviously haven't confirmed it, of them actually like letting the protesters. And
that doesn't mean it's not an attack on democracy.
Well, yeah, but and of course this was in several isolated areas, but they appear to be not they appear to be letting the protesters in. Also, it was, do you really think these people that didn't really have any weapons except for, actually, I think several of them had
there were police officers that died, you remember?
Did anyone die? I think there was
people
maybe
died.
one guy.
Of course people died. There was multiple police officers that died. And not to just keep rambling off about that, but after that event, past the last few years, you remember, I don't know.
Okay, there was one police officer that died, but
5 people died. Another died of a drug overdose.
3 died of natural causes.
Many people were injured, including 170.
Yeah, but they didn't die. So
that's still
they really thought this was such a threat to democracy. There was literally
congressmen hiding inside of their offices, drafting declarations of impeachment.
If this was such a threat to democracy, why didn't the police show up instantly with buses and things like that and just carting people away?
Donald Trump could have instantly gotten rid of this. He was literally watching it on TV as it happened. You remember that, right? And as it came out, and he was like, as his advisors came out and said, the people who were watching him, he was watching it in awe, and he only came out hours later telling them to leave. And so Donald Trump right now is being elected as he's president-elect to the United States. My personal, do I think that our systems are strong enough to prevent... do I think Donald Trump will be a monarch? No. I don't think that he's going to override term limits. I don't think he's going to have a 3rd term. I don't think that he's going to destroy our democracy. But that was one of the worst things of the Trump administration, which is, in my opinion, saying a lot. But there were serious consequences for this guy. They tried to arrest him, and then it failed, and he obviously will never be in politics again, and Donald Trump won't. And as we were talking about the other day with the German government, we do have a lot to learn from these other foreign nations, which in my opinion handle a lot of these things much better. After January 6th happened, I remember seeing Mitch McConnell speak on the Senate floor after January 6th happened, and it was one of the most insane things that I've ever seen. The events unfolding after that, he was talking about this is 100% Donald Trump's fault, this is 100% the fault of his rhetoric, and then later he basically took most of it back, and people support him now today more than ever. So it was really surreal. I remember when I was like 11 years old playing Roblox or something, seeing some video on YouTube saying, "Oh, the Capitol's under attack," and my dad was at the Ark, I think, and I came home and just watching this happen, and it all culminating, and then the Republicans and Mike Pence, like, that will go down as one of the cornerstones of Mike Pence's legacy. Like, I probably need to move on in a second here, but of course, he will be remembered as probably the person who did that, and the person who got Donald Trump elected with evangelicals, of course. But it was really crazy, and I think there's a lot to learn from this.
Yeah, but do you think that these protesters or rioters or whatever, do you think they thought they would just totally overturn the election?
Well, that's kind of what they thought they were going to do, because they were all, like, morons.
But they're just, like, wandering around the Capitol, taking pictures and things like that. They weren't, like, ransacking, trying to, like, kill people.
They were, like, stealing stuff, and they were literally
Yeah,
chanting, "Hang Mike."
People.
They were literally chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," with a guillotine outside, carrying it around. They were definitely planning. If they found Mike Pence and they got a hold of him,
of
he
course
100% would have died.
They would. It's mob mentality.
He would have. They would have killed the vice president of the United States, dude. That's a pretty, like, yeah, they were trying to kill people.
Yeah, but if you put a mob of Kamala Harris supporters after the election, but do you think if a mob of Kamala Harris supporters suddenly had access to Donald Trump, do you think they would kill him?
Are they like?
It's just mob mentality.
Do I think that a mob of Kamala Harris supporters
after the election
would go into the Capitol and chant "Hang Donald Trump"? No, I don't think
but
would do that.
if they had access to him, if they found Donald Trump,
if a group of Kamala Harris supporters teleported into a room, I mean, honestly, probably not. It depends how. It depends how.
Did you see
it
these
depends how
reactions?
radicalized they are. If you take all the most radicalized Kamala Harris supporters, maybe, but like
because I think it's fair to compare the most radicalized Kamala supporters because these people that did this were the most radicalized Trump supporters.
There is not a scenario in which Kamala Harris could ever make a speech outside of the White House speaking like Donald Trump did, and there would be Kamala Harris supporters there that would then go to the Capitol.
No, but I'm saying like mob mentality. They would.
It's not mob mentality. Yes. It's Donald Trump inciting violence and trying to destroy our democracy. That's exactly what he did.
No. But you're taking us away from the argument. The argument is they were apparently running around chanting "Hang Mike Pence." But what I'm saying is, if they would have found him, they would have killed him. But that's just it's proven. When you're with people, you do stupid things, especially when you're in a mob. So I feel like again on the other side. So you're
just like defending these like January 6th terrorists now, basically.
Do you think they were terrorists?
Yeah, that's domestic terrorism.
They were trying to. Then why weren't they charged as such? Why aren't they spending?
They were in jail right now.
How many of them were?
They're like all in jail. They like that. They're terrorists. They're domestic terrorists. That's terrorism, and most of those guys are in jail now. For what did it say?
562.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it takes a long time to send people to jail, but like I remember, like it was a huge like thing in like 2022 around all these getting these January 6th quote unquote protesters out, which is not a protest, it's terrorism. But like that's terrorism. They're committing terrorism and they're like raiding our Capitol building and stealing stuff and trying to kill people and chanting death upon our democratically elected leaders for doing their job, which a mob of Kamala Harris supporters would never do.
Yeah, I mean,
but definitively really all that I have to say on that.
So, but I'm struggling to find a parallel though. I don't think it's the same thing as the whole South Korea thing, where the guy just totally he declared martial law and all that. I don't really think you can draw a line there and say, oh, Donald Trump should be...
It's similar in many ways. Like, he tried to basically override much of South Korea's democracy because he was unhappy with how the government was functioning for him, and he was punished for it. And Donald Trump didn't like how the people responded to his 2020 campaign and tried to destroy democracy for it.
So, well, I guess I'm not condoning Donald Trump's words or anything like that. But do you think when he did that, he really thought, again, that those people were going to overturn the election, that they were just going to cancel out the votes of tens of millions of people?
Of course he didn't think they were going to override the election. He probably thought they were just going to send a huge quote-unquote message to the system, and he did watch as it happened for hours before he came out.
Well, yeah, but that's not what we're talking about right now, him watching it. We're talking about...
He meant to, like, send a message to the system, just screw everybody that disagreed with him. It was meant to, like, punish Mike Pence for not going...
But why would he do that if he knew they were going to do that? Like, he must have known that would have literally zero positive impact. Because they're not just going to overturn the election.
Well, I mean,
why would he do
Donald
that
Trump is smart on some things and he's not smart on some things. And it ended up being a pretty big detriment against the Republicans in the midterms, along with abortion, I would probably say. But, like... Again, I would say if he didn't know that it was going to happen, why did he just watch as it happened in Glee, basically?
Was it in Glee?
Yeah, he was literally like in Glee watching this. That's what the people were watching.
First of all, what are the
Do you remember the people that were with him coming out and like all these people, these advisors coming out and writing
just because he didn't stop it right away doesn't mean
he literally watched it and was happy about it, that it was happening.
Like, how do they know he was happy? Was he, like, smiling and laughing?
He was literally watching the TV and just, like, staring at it. I mean, I'm not Donald Trump, but...
But it doesn't take a genius to know that you can't just take a couple thousand protesters and just completely overturn the will of 300 million people.
It wasn't meant to just completely override the election. It was meant to send a message to Mike Pence and the Democrats and everybody that Donald Trump didn't like, and to deliver a major blow to our democracy. So if you want to say...
He was trying to deliver a major blow to democracy?
Yeah.
Why?
Of course.
Well, how would that help him at all?
It really wouldn't, because he's egotistical and because he's a narcissist and he wants people to fear him.
So he would just completely jeopardize all of his future chances.
Which it really didn't. But yeah, I mean, he's not...
Donald Trump, if he knew this was going to happen, he would be smart enough to know that, like, why would I do this? This doesn't help me at all. Again, it helped the Democrats in the midterm. So he knew it wouldn't help him at all if they did this.
I mean, if he didn't know that it was going to happen, he literally said we're going to march down to the Capitol, and he only said peaceful one time in his entire speech. He gave off a major impression that he was going to be there with the protesters, or the quote-unquote protesters, more like terrorists. But, like... If he didn't know this was going to happen, and he knew this was going to be a detriment to him, why didn't he tell them to stop when he's the only person that could possibly make them stop? He watched as it happened, dude. Like...
Yeah, but again, you said it himself. He's egotistical. He's not going to just jeopardize his whole base or whatever.
Which it really didn't. I mean, he won the 2024 election. And he probably lost, like, 2 Senate seats or whatever.
Yeah, but, like, that was massive, though. Like... that it was not good for him at all to have to go through that impeachment vote.
But it ended up not really mattering that much.
But it could have mattered. It could have mattered.
Well, if he... Like, part of it is that, like, really... Like, if you're asking me why do I think that Donald Trump caused January 6th, and how can I prove that he, like, knew that it was going to happen? If you listen to his speech, he only mentioned peaceful one time, and then he
still
gave off.
It, though.
It was like an hour and a half long speech. He said that we're going to march down to the Capitol, count dozens of times, and then he gave off the major impression that he was going to be there with the protesters. Or the terrorists. He didn't stop the people that were in the Capitol. He watched as it happened, and after it came out, the entire Republican Party was against him, and then he just convinced them to all go back with him. And he's still the leader of the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, I mean, in order to become the president, you have to be a narcissist. Donald Trump is a special breed of extreme narcissism. And, I mean, I think a lot of Trump supporters would honestly probably agree with that, too, and just not care. But, like, if you want to say one last thing about that, then you can, but I think we should move on, too.
Yeah, you should definitely move on. But I just want to say real quick. So North Korea, unsurprisingly, has been mocking them, of course,
Yeah.
because like
making
first,
fun of them over
first the martial law, then the plane crash, and now this. They're just using this as ammunition, of course, just because they can, and it will be interesting to see how the rest of the world's political leaders react to this utter chaos unfolding.
Yeah, so our next piece of news is the medals that Biden gave out. So recipients of the Medal of Freedom, which Biden gave out, include Bill Nye, Denzel Washington, and NBA player Irvin Johnson. But more of his controversial picks for the medal are Hillary Clinton and George Soros. And Biden also awarded Liz Cheney the Presidential Citizens Medal. And I have here. So yeah, here's the video of Biden awarding Liz Cheney the Medal of Honor, or not the Medal of Honor, the Presidential Citizens Medal. And I mean, like again, on the January 6th thing, Liz Cheney was one of the only Republicans who didn't go back with the base and didn't go and went against the grain and led the fight against Donald Trump to actually punish him for his actions on January 6th. And so, like, I think she 100% deserves this, and this is one of the, this is a good thing that Biden did, and I agree. Do I think that George Soros and Hillary Clinton really deserve, like, these medals? Like, really no, but what would you say on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's his choice. He chooses who gets this. Yeah, I do agree. People should be rewarded for their bravery,
political courage,
standing up against all these people. So I mean, I guess there's not a whole lot to say. I guess, at least from my point of view, I guess it's just his call.
People have been pretty mad online. I mean, with the Twitter stuff. Maybe I do spend too much time on Twitter, but people on Twitter have been pretty mad, mainly at the George Soros picks. Like, George Soros, not really the greatest guy ever, but, whatever. And Hillary Clinton, I mean, another one of those stories where I think one of the major things has honestly been the reaction to it and not necessarily what actually happened. But I, think we can honestly move on now to the Mike. This was honestly like one of the craziest things ever is Mike Johnson actually has survived the Speaker of the House vote. So Mike Johnson, at first, I think he got 215 votes, right? Seemed like he didn't have the votes to survive and that he would cease being Speaker of the House, but apparently those people voicing rhetoric about him being a rhino finally decided to shut up and vote for him. So I think Thomas Massey, who are the three people?
I don't remember.
Yeah. I think one of the three major people that didn't want to vote for Mike Johnson was that guy. But one of the things that I like to say is I think that the word rhino has honestly lost like so much of its meaning now. I think that most Republicans that call like Ron DeSantis a rhino, like Republican in name only, probably most of those guys probably don't even know what that means, that it just means like a bad Republican. But I honestly really didn't believe that Mike Johnson was going to survive this vote. I thought that Mike Johnson was 100% toast because, I mean, obviously there's Thomas Massey, there's these couple voices coming out, but it really sounded like behind the scenes, it sounded like Mike Johnson just did not have the votes at all to maintain his speakership. And, there's people talking about putting Elon Musk to be the speaker, and which is like, which would be the stupidest decision that America ever made, probably. But maybe besides the Civil War, but I don't know. Elon Musk probably shouldn't be the speaker, but I mean, like, it just did not seem like this guy had the votes at all, and it seemed like he was probably toast. Because he just wasn't. I mean, with the budget bill, that Donald Trump ended up being the guy that was able to save Mike Johnson because he just came out and was able to convince these three people to finally vote for him. But it's like, what would you?
I mean, Trump just personally called all three flip their votes. But I think it is good on Trump, though. I do give him credit for being able to maintain the party's unity and not having what happened last time, how there was like a record number of revotes and all that, and there was all these questions about, is this thing even going to happen? So he was able, I think, good for him, being able to convince them to maintain the party's unity. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I don't know. This was a crazy situation. I was insanely surprised that Mike Johnson was able to maintain his speakership. And honestly, the fact that he's even speaker in the first place, I mean, he's like some random Republican from Louisiana, and he's basically speaker because of, everybody, with Kevin McCarthy and Matt Gaetz and the whole impeachment when nothing could happen in the government. So yeah, that's really the last thing I have to say about that. One of the most shocking things that's happened this week, indeed. So do you have anything else to say about that?
Not really, yeah.
All right, so thank you for listening to this episode of Overshadowed. We have this new setup, and we will be continually improving it. Have a good day, of course, and a Happy New Year.
Yep, yeah.
All right.